What's up, my fine people out there on this beautiful week 4 of the college football season? We had a nice little slate of games last week with our boys, and this week definitely is the week that everybody's looking at, has been looking at, had circled on the calendar. Welcome back to another edition of our Talking Ball podcast with my boy Faro. We had some good games last week, and like I say, the slate this week looks very appetizing. We got a jam-packed show. We're going to jam in some reactions and all the big games that are this Saturday night and Saturday afternoon, a full day of college football. What do you think about last weekend, Buddy Rowe?
It was a good weekend. You know, it's not this weekend coming up, but you know, we had some good games. We stayed up super late for Colorado State. And I was like, Jesus, man, it's 2 a.m. But other than that, it was a good weekend.
What's crazy about that too is, you came over to obviously watch the Florida Tennessee game, and then we were talking about, we got a late game, we want to see some Dion, and we're like, we got to watch it, and then it seemed like according to the ESPN numbers and all that everybody else decided to watch it as well, because anybody I talked to, said that they watched the game too, and I'm like, man, all these people staying up till 2:30 in the morning, it's like one of those tune in times, and it was the number one game so far this year, rating wise. And I heard it was ESPN's 5th most watched game of all time. Like, that's crazy to me.
And you would assume like those first 4 are probably championship games, or like Bama. And
right. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how they do the rating on that. Whether it's because it was just ESPN numbers. So I mean, I guess ESPN's had the college football playoff or the college football Final Four for the last couple of years. But a ton of people tuned in. Obviously, much Dion and Colorado has been must-see TV. They've taken over the college football world by storm and all that stuff. But I mean, it was we can get into a little bit of that game later on. I guess we'll just get it kicked off because we can talk about Florida State and Boston College first. We'll save the Gators for a second before we talk about the previews of the games this week. Florida State, we talked about it, went up to Chestnut Hill, had the 12 o'clock kick. Just kind of like, I don't know, slept walk through the beginning of the game. The weather wasn't too bad early, but then it was kind of wet still. And just, they had, just offense couldn't get rolling. Boston College kind of just hung around. Jordan Travis got banged up right there before the half. And I know Florida State fans definitely had to take a sigh of relief that there was nothing serious from that, but there was a point in time where, I looked up and I'm like, okay, I had Florida State to cover in this game. I had Florida State to win big, and they were up 31-10, going into the 4th, and you're like, all right, let's see if they can cover. The next thing you look up and the game is, within a score or two, and then Boston College ran it all the way to the end there.
Yeah, I think it's one of those games coaches are scared of, that noon kick, first road conference game. It just, you don't know how the kids are going to react when you're going on the road the first time. And on top of that, a noon game. Like you said, you felt like Florida State had control of the game. And the next thing you know, you're like, whoa, what's going on? And with the other crazy part, like we talked about Saturday, Boston College had 18 penalties. And they were still in the game.
Dude, yeah, totally. 18 penalties, and a lot of them were forced and dumb. Just like
dumb,
stupid stuff, late hits, offsides.
Covering up,
trying to clap the snap count on defense, all that stuff. They just had some dumb. They had forced penalties.
Yeah, and what's nuts is they were still in the game, and what bit him in the ass was a penalty face mask, because I was just like, man, just the ball, get the hell out of Chestnut Hill, get on the plane and go home. And then Mike went for it, and you're just like, ooh, I don't like that play call on 4th down.
Yeah, they had it stopped.
And they get saved by a face mask penalty, and I was just like, you want to say they weren't really moving the ball on Florida State. They were getting some lucky plays here and there to convert first downs and whatnot, and got down the field. But you're like, man, if they get the ball right here, they're almost in field goal range. Like, why are you going for it? Yeah. Like, you got to believe in your team. But I just felt like the way that game was going, just punt and get the hell out of there.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, the surprising part about it too was, Florida State offensively wasn't really lighting it up. They couldn't really run the ball very well. Benson didn't have a great day on the ground.
Yeah.
Jordan hit some plays, missed some plays, but more so we had talked about how great Florida State's defense was in the first half of the season, and BC ran up 457 yards of offense on them. You're like, where's this FSU Yes, I mean, it's one of those things where you're like, usually your defense travels. They always say the defense travels. Your defense is like your calling card. If you can play D, you can be in ball games, and usually your offense can make enough plays to do what they got to do. But I was like, man, BC Thomas Castanelos, he's a kid from out of Ware County. We covered him in high school a couple of times. They want to. They were always in state championship games up there, and he originally had committed to UCF, and then made his way up to Boston College. But I've seen the kid in high school, and I knew he was a pretty good quarterback, and he's actually doing. He did some nice things Saturday against Florida State. But I was definitely just underwhelming performance. But bottom line, you get out of there with a win. Exactly.
Yeah.
You get out of there with a win. A win is a win. This is one of those games where it's week 3 in the season. If you run the table, get to week 11, nobody's thinking about that 31-29 game against Boston College. What did you learn from it? How did you get better?
Were they peeking ahead? Were they peeking ahead to Clemson?
Definitely got a big game this weekend. So it's like
it's easy to get up. It's easy to get up for Clemson at noon,
right?
Than it is for Boston College on the road at noon.
Yeah,
two totally different games.
Yeah, and then like you said, the game kind of it gets in one of those weird feeling games where every game is different. So you might get into a dogfight, you might get into a shootout, you might get into a game where you just don't have your fastball, and you're not playing good ball. And I think that's kind of what they ran into a little bit. But again, Norvell I heard his post game speech. It was good because that's what you got to say in a game like that. And like I said, I think sometimes I told Ricky this the other day. I said sometimes you learn more, obviously in losses, but it's better to win more in a close win about your team because you got the freaking win instead of the loss.
Well, you look at every national championship team over the last 20, 25 years. They all have had one game where you're just like, ooh. I mean, you think about the 0-1 Miami team. They go up to Chestnut Hill and they almost lose that game.
Yeah.
I mean, the LSU team, I can't remember which game it was, with Joe Burrow. They had a tough game. And so you go through this,
they had
the past, and you're like, you always have that 1 or 2 games. So, there's not really a 12-game dominance. And it's just the hardest thing ever for the coaches to get kids up to play games that they know they're going to win. And the kids know they're going to win.
It's definitely, it's one of those things where this is the other thing too. Just watching some of these games this past weekend, and we've known this too. It is hard to win on the road, man. Like it is. Like it
really is.
It's you think about it. It's kind of like one of those things where you're like, okay, it's a road game against an underwhelming team or whatever. Yeah. It doesn't matter. I don't know. It's just the elements, the different environment, just the other team's more amped. All that stuff, and it is hard to win in college football on the road.
They always play tough for that red bandana game as well.
Right? Yeah, that's true too.
That's one of their signature. Usually, it's a Friday night game.
Right.
For some reason, it's a Saturday. I don't know why.
Yeah. All right, dog. Well, let's get over to my boys.
Yeah, came to play. Gators.
Came to play. I thought they could get the win. I was hoping they would be able to do what they needed to do. They were able to do what I was hoping they were going to be able to do, which was somehow get back to running the football, being successful on the ground, creating, easy passes for Mertz to complete to get first downs. The question was, like we said too, how can they control that Tennessee front? And then on the flip side, what was Florida going to do defensively to slow down Tennessee, the wide splits? Their run game was really good. So, it was going to be an interesting chess match between Heupel and Austin Armstrong. And I think the Gators did everything they needed to do to get it done. They I won't say they surprised me because this is what I was hoping I would see. Obviously we didn't get that week 1, but they put it all together. So now the big question is, can you carry over and continue some consistency with this formula as the season goes on? That's what you got to see. So, hopefully that's the case. But yeah, I was thoroughly happy with ETN. He's a freaking beast. Like, dude is special. And like I say, Mertz did enough. And then defensively, I think Armstrong's a hell of a we talked about Miami and their coordinators that Cristobal hired as a home run, which I think are both Dawson and Guidry. But I think Billy did a hell of a job of getting Austin Armstrong because he's been as advertised. His defenses were top 10 in the country. Did you know that?
I did.
Yeah.
So what was your takeaway? I thought they did a great job of being physical at the lines of scrimmage. I mean, on the offensive side, they were running the ball. The guys up front were being physical and dominant. It helped get your center back. And,
Yeah, no, that was huge.
it was Johnson and ETN weren't getting touched until they were 2, 3, 4 yards down the field. And then you give good backs like that kind of space. And you saw how shifty ETN was, and he was a load to bring down. And Tennessee missed a ton of tackles, but you got to give the backs credit for being able to break those tackles to get those, yards after contact. So I thought the line of scrimmage was key in this game for the Gators. And on defense, they were physical. It was like Joe Milton was confused. And I thought they did a good job stopping the running game. And they were just like, we're going to stop the running game. And even if he pulls it, guys, just keep going up the field and just create that pressure on him. And they did a great job putting pressure on Joe Milton to where he couldn't even throw the ball, and he just looked confused to me.
Yeah, no, I was, put it this way. We were watching it, and, you come out the gate, Gators have a good first drive. You're like, all right, this is a good first drive. Go down, you miss a freaking field goal. And then Tennessee goes, boom, boom, hits a big play, throws throws a little back shoulder on your number one cornerback. The Tennessee says, go to sleep. And then I'm sitting there thinking, like, oh shit, we're about to get run out of the building. Yeah. And then, it was like one of those, like, man, that was too easy for Tennessee to do.
Yeah.
And Gators came right back the next drive, got the game. They missed the extra point again. Like this, we got other issues.
They got to work on the special teams, man.
But again, got the game back tied, and then just took over that late first quarter and second quarter, and got the big lead at halftime.
Yeah,
Billy said it at after the game that after halftime he went majorly conservative in that third quarter. I think the Gators only ran 6 plays, but when you're up big,
why? I heard some Gator fans complaining like they didn't throw the ball, they didn't get hurt. I'm like, what?
You do not do that. No, you do not do that. Yeah, now you would have loved to see him get some first downs.
Man, get the hell out of there with the W.
Exactly. So you're up big enough. I'm talking about, you'd hope they would be able to create some runs for first downs like they did in the first half in that third quarter. But, again, Mertz right now, the formula for him is complete balls, man. Complete balls, extend drives.
That's it.
Can
they run the ball and let him make easy completions?
Yeah, when you're 19-24, that's solid. That's real good. No turnovers.
Yeah.
So what sucked was it really looked like they were ready to feature Eugene Trey Wilson early in that game with 4 straight touches. Then he gets hurt, man. You're like, damn.
Have we heard anything else?
He's good. He's good to go. Apparently, it's like it's not a collarbone or anything like that. It's like
stinger or something like that.
It was like a bruise or something like that. He might not play this week against Charlotte, but just to hold him out. But hopefully, he'll be back for Kentucky and South Carolina and these games on the stretch. But
the games that matter,
right? Flipping on the defensive side, like I was saying, I felt like going in, I wasn't a Joe Milton fan. I just didn't think he could complete enough balls. And watching the game tape again, it seems like Heupel is not all that confident in Joe Milton's. He did it early, hit some plays early, but a lot of those plays were east and west. He didn't really run the ball well himself on the
scripted plays that they run to death during the week. And then once you get off script, what do you do from there?
Yeah, no, like I say, I thought that the key, like we always say, when you really watch a film and break it down, is lining up is half the battle. And Armstrong did a hell of a job of having everybody in the right spot. Because I went back and watched it, and I could see when they had different formations, what they had guys in the secondary doing. They had loaded boxes when they needed to. They had guys out of the box for they had the right.
Definitely remember they were confused because we kept saying, "Dang, Tennessee's calling a timeout again."
Yeah. They called 2 timeouts right on the first drive of the third quarter. The crowd was definitely involved in the game. Like I say, it was one of those. The Gators played really good, and then everybody's saying, "Oh, Tennessee's not that good now. Tennessee stinks," and that's what just everybody does. So we'll see how good Tennessee is. We'll see how they bounce back. Yeah. And then again, the biggest thing was this was like last year, Florida beating Utah week 1. Oh, they're great. They're all this. So now you've got the expectation of, hey, this is what you can do. This is what you can be like. So now you get a layup game against Charlotte, and then we're really going to find out how good you are when you go on the road in Lexington where you haven't had success. So
compare and contrast for me is you played against a very physical team in Utah up front, and then you played against they weren't that physical in Tennessee.
They still reached their tackles for loss though, their average on the season though. So they still did a decent job, but it just didn't show up. It just didn't show up on the score sheet.
Yeah, so going forward for the Gators, the key is gonna be if we could run the football against whatever SEC defense we're going against, you got to feel good as a Gator fan that you can get out of there with a win.
Yeah.
Like I said, that clock rule that you hate played in the favor of the Gators on Saturday.
We sucked it out for sure.
Took the air right out of the ball. That's why when I heard fans talking about, oh, they need to throw it, I'm like, man, you keep the ball on the ground and get out of there.
Our fans sometimes are so like we were up 29 to 6 or 3 or whatever it was, 7, and I'm like, here's what happens. Gator fans are like, we are so greedy, man. It's like
right. You can't be happy with the win. You just can't be happy with it.
Well, like I say, we're so greedy that you're up 26-7, at halftime. So you're like, dude, do you see this Tennessee offense scoring 3 touchdowns in the second half? I didn't.
Not how they played. Not how they played.
So they got they had they kicked a field goal in the third. Still a 16-point game. So now you're like, okay, do you see him scoring 2 times and getting 2-point conversions without us getting anything in the fourth quarter? I would have obviously liked to not see, the corner getting beat on the deep ball when they hit Bro McCoy later in the game. But like even after that touchdown, it was still like Tennessee ain't, they're nowhere close.
You still gotta score again, stop our running game, score again, stop our. You're feeling like
So what happens is Gator fans are like, okay, it's 26-7. That means the final score to this game is going to be 42-14. Well, like I say, it doesn't have to be that. So
it doesn't. What did you just say when we're talking about Florida State? Get out with the W.
Exactly.
Who cares? Get out of there.
You won that game in the first half, and then you basically put it on cruise control and kept them at bay in the second half with what you do. So like I say, this is the team that I was hoping we would see at Utah. Obviously on the road, another one where like they just didn't execute, didn't play well, didn't have all that. So can they go on the road? And now that I feel like that SEC East, we talked about it early in the year, is kind of a mishmash. If you're like Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, like all those teams, South Carolina, you're like, they're all about the same. So it comes down to who executes and where you're playing the game.
Well, and I was just going to say that's where it's not in your favor because you guys go to Lexington.
Yeah,
you go to Columbia. We
go to Columbia.
Yeah,
exactly.
Both Columbias. So
you play the best team. Then you play the best team, number 1 team. In Jacksonville. So
they
still got a lot. We got a long way to go to get that. So let's just
and like we say, you just win this weekend.
Yeah,
don't worry about going to Lexington next weekend. Get the running game going and beat Charlotte and get the special team.
We said it. We said it last week, and we'll say I'll beat the drum now to it. Is literally every game is its own game. There's no comparison to this game to that game. Yes, you can draw a contrast and what you want to see. Like I want to see Florida be able to run the ball like they did against Tennessee versus Kentucky. But guess what? That Kentucky game is going to be a completely different game. It's not
for sure.
You can take things from it and hope you see and execute things in that, but every game is this different game. So
and we'll break that game down next week.
Exactly.
just get through Charlotte and work on the special teams.
Yeah, exactly. So, so basically, got out of there, got the dub. So all of our teams got to win this week. So we don't really have to break down the preview to Charlotte. The Gators need to beat Charlotte, and that's it. So your boys have another easy game. They obviously we talked about them beating BC, and taking care of business on Thursday night. I think you guys do the same thing against the Temple team. I think you just let Van Dyke throw it around the yard a little bit, run the ball, play some D, and get out of there with a win.
Yeah, first road game of the season for the Canes. Treat it as a business trip. Mario's going to learn some things like what the guys like, what they don't like going on the road. And like you say, just be physical up front, blitz the hell out of Temple's quarterback, get out of there with a W. That's all I want to see. No injuries going into the bye week. We got a bye week next week, which I'm not really in favor of early bye weeks, but it gets us right for the rest of the way is conference play.
Yeah.
So let's and us coming off of bye weeks the last couple of years haven't been the greatest. Even going into bye weeks, So hopefully we get the W. I mean, hopefully we should get the W this week.
Yeah,
Go into the
definitely.
bye week, clean some things up, get healed up a little bit, and get ready for Georgia Tech.
Yeah, which I like the way your schedule sets up. We talked about it, so it's just you got that tough stretch right after Tech when you go to Carolina. But like I say, we'll definitely touch on all that stuff. But I think you guys handle business. I think Van Dyke does what he does. He's probably going to be a really high percentage passing, going to have 3 or 4 touchdowns, and we know who's going to catch them. Jacoby, run the ball, just Restrepo, all those boys. I think Miami scores a bunch, and I think they beat the heck out of Temple, the Owls, baby. All right, so now let's get into that juicy slate of Saturday ball.
Man, I can't wait. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's
like
the
Christmas. The good part is it's good layers to it too. You got that. I know people have been complaining about Florida State, Clemson not being a prime time, but there's just so many games. It's like, hey, let's layer them up, and you get win early and just enjoy the rest of the day. You know what I'm saying? So
get on the plane, get back to T-Town.
Yeah, so we'll kick it off with the Seminoles. We talked about they had a tough one. Didn't play as up to par as they should. Going to Mr. Dabo Sweeney's house in Death Valley, the other Death Valley at Clemson.
So many questions about that team.
This game did last week. Florida State, how they played against BC, did it give you any intrepidation about winning this game or how they'll play at Clemson? No.
Yeah. I just feel like it's a conference game, open on the road against a team you're supposed to beat, knowing that you might as well say Clemson, Florida State is a rivalry over the last 15 years. You're about to go to a rival's house the following weekend at noon. Some of those kids are looking ahead. So I like I say, we'll see this weekend. If they lose this week, then it's like, ooh, maybe we did see the signs versus BC. But as of today, I still believe Florida State's one of the top 5 teams in the country, and I think they could go into Death Valley and win. But the key is going to be is Jordan Travis healthy? His health. He took that hit in that BC game. So is he good to go? I mean, he looked like it in the second half, but is he good to go? It's going to be, one of the things I'm looking forward to see at noon.
Yeah, I look at it as, Clemson, we talked about them in that week 1 game against Duke and just how out of sorts they looked, how unexplosive they looked, the turnovers, that basically
red zone turnovers.
If they don't turn the ball over, they probably somehow get a win at Duke. You're like, oh, at Duke, they probably win the game. So they're 3-0 if that's the case. Yeah. And then they had, Charleston Southern, who's terrible. FAU's been terrible. And, so what you say is in those games, you wax them, get your offense right, get your defense right. Those are like tune up, get everything right, get everything feeling good. And I guess to a sense, they did that because they blew out both of those teams. So my biggest question is how much did they get better, taking care of the ball and getting that offense and Klubnik and all those guys going in the last 2 ball games to take on a Florida State team who has been highly explosive on the offensive end. I mean, think about it. Florida State still scored 31 again, even at Boston College. So their offense is still humming. They're still scoring some points, but I just feel like Florida State's the better team. I feel like Florida State's got the better players. They're
going to be flying around. They're going to be flying around.
Again, take away what you want to take away from Boston College. You got out of there with a win, but I think Florida State's far superior with their skill guys, their running backs, and then I feel like their defense will have a chip on its shoulder for not playing as good last week at Boston College. They, like you say, they'll be flying around. I think they get after it. I think they beat Clemson by 2 touchdowns, man. I don't. The line is like weird and scary to be 2.5. Like
2.5, yeah.
I'm running at the ticket window.
Well, what I'm curious to see as well. We talked about this the other week with Clemson. Like, is Garrett Riley really going to be able to call play? Is he calling his plays or Dabo's plays?
I know that's been the major question they've been talking about because it doesn't look like anything they ran at TCU. It doesn't look like anything that Lincoln runs out at USC. It looks like Dabo's slowed down.
Got the handcuffs on him.
Yeah, it ain't wide open. Now here's the thing, and this is what everybody's been talking about. They don't have the personnel like they've had before. So
that's
it's like
true too.
So it might be a combination of both of those. Like, we can't call this wide open stuff because we ain't got the dudes, and that's what's crazy.
They don't have the dudes, especially on the outside.
I know, it's weird, man. Like Clemson has recruited well, but it's, again, going back to Dabo, he ain't hitting the portal and getting like Dabo's got to at least be like, you know what, let me get in the mix for a number one receiver in the portal.
Apparently he doesn't want portal kids.
No, that's what I'm saying. But that's where
the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
You say, okay, I don't have the guys on campus right now, or I haven't developed these freshmen yet. Go find one of these guys who's been at another school that's like a Keon Coleman. Find a guy like that to insert to be your
diamond in the rough,
to go with the rest of your young 5-stars and 4-star guys. So I don't know. I just feel like Florida State's the better team right now, and I agree. So I think
I'm picking Florida State to win.
Yeah, you think they cover that too? 2.5 too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a pick 'em on my
side. Like I said, I just have belief in that defensive line and how they're going to get after Klubnik and they're going to stop Shipley and those guys and like you say, they just don't seem like they have receivers that can get separation from anyone. And you're going against a talented, fast defense. Yeah. And then on the flip side, can they slow down the Florida State offense when they're throwing a back and then another back and then another back with Benson, Tiafoli, and then the other kid that stepped up. I forgot his name. The other kid that stepped up this past weekend.
Yeah, he was the leading rusher was it wasn't even Benson or
no, it was
who was it? Let me look it up because I got
Rodney Hill. It was Rodney Hill. And then you got Jaheim Bell, and then like you say, you got Keon Coleman, and then your favorite receiver, Johnny Wilson.
Johnny Wilson, baby. Yeah.
I'm just not a believer in Johnny Wilson.
Yeah. No, I mean
I think he's good, but he should be dominant. But I don't.
I agree. What's crazy is Trey Benson only got 38 yards in that game on 12 carries. He was struggling,
Yeah, BC did a good job against him.
Rodney Hill had the long run that set him up for 8 yards of carry on 5 totes. But Johnny Wilson was still the leading receiver with 4 for 105.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's just you got to find that's the other thing too. They need to find another guy to complement. I mean, obviously Jaheim Bell's the next guy, but Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman, you got to find somebody else. Did Keon Coleman not have a catch?
I don't believe so.
He did not catch a ball in that game.
I think that's 2 weeks in a row because I think last week he only had one or two.
He had that hurdle play against Southern Miss that I know.
Yeah, but he only had like 1 or 2. He didn't have many last week. Come on, Norvell, identify your playmakers, man.
Keon Coleman's got to catch some balls this week.
Or at least get some target.
If Clemson shuts out Keon Coleman, I might have a different story because Clemson's D line is good. They're gonna get after Florida State's run game as well, and they're gonna get after Travis. Now that's one thing. Obviously, Dabo's recruited well. You think about going back to the Duke game, like Clemson's D played well enough to win that game. It was the freaking offense turning the ball over. So
yeah, I think they're front 5, 6. They're going to be good on the front 5 or 6. But after that, I just don't see it. I just don't see Clemson beating Florida State. We could be going crazy, like you said. Maybe Vegas knows something we don't know.
Right.
But just after the first couple of weeks of watching some of these games, I'm just it's a head scratcher that it's only 2.5.
I know.
It really it really is.
All right, well, let's get to the 2 primetime 3:30 matchups. We got your boy Primetime finally heading out to a top 10 team, a good team, and they're big time underdogs on the road. Like they say, this is the first game where the rubber meets the road, where you're like, okay, Dion and the boys, they're not favored. They're not expected to win.
No.
So what do they do in this road game? How do they perform, in a hostile place like Outson? They haven't really I'm not considering TCU a hostile environment at all. And then they play that.
You ever been to Fort Worth?
Yeah, no. It's not fun.
It's not hostile.
Yeah. So and then you've been at the friendly confines in Boulder, baby, where you've had Lil Wayne concerts and The Rock coming out on the sideline with you. So going to Outson, we know that's one of the top places to go play. Great college football atmosphere. Oregon. I feel like Oregon's been one of the quiet teams this whole season. Nobody's really talking about them much because they just haven't really played a marquee game, and they're just taking care of business and beating the hell out of everybody.
That Texas Tech
that
game
Texas Tech game was a different, like, nail biter of a game.
Yeah, and they
guess
came
what?
out with an 8-point win.
That was them going on the road, So
Yeah.
like I say,
night game in Lubbock, middle of nowhere.
Yeah, so I feel like this is the game where Dion and them finally catch their first L. Now the question is, do they come anywhere close to this 21 line? Do they, does Oregon cover? I've said it all along. I feel like watching the first start of the season for Colorado, their offense is definitely capable enough to be in a lot of ball games. Now, I felt like their weakest link was their defense. So now you're going up against a high-powered team like Oregon. You're going to have to make it a shootout and get into a track meet. But can your defense?
I don't see that.
Yeah, can your defense make stops? Can you get into even a shootout?
Yeah.
Hell, they got into a shootout last week with Colorado State, and we were like, how is this game even close? And you're like, Colorado State came to play. They came to play, and they were jacked up with all the, the shit talking going on during the week, which, I think that was the other part too that was missed was that was one of the, we watched it. That was one of the best games in a while where you're like, when do you remember a week 3 game against two teams that aren't your favorite team to watch, where you're like, man, this is a good ass game. And the game was actually really good.
It was really good.
To where, Colorado State, like, they were making plays, the quarterback was, hitting those underneath mesh drag routes. I was like, who is this Horton kid at receiver? He was a baller, then the game was physical, trash talking, some late hits, some personal fouls, all that type of stuff. But all in all, that's where you're like, man, this is a great college football game.
I just feel like for this upcoming weekend with Dan Lanning and the guys they have on defense for Oregon, control this game a lot better than what Colorado State could. And it comes down to the lines of scrimmage. We saw it against Nebraska, and we saw it this past weekend with Colorado State. They were getting after Shedeur.
Yeah,
Shedeur is a dog. I wasn't sure about the kid coming out of Jackson State. I tipped my hat off to go 98 yards, like nothing, and then to win in double overtime and just
you had to get the 2-point conversion, all that.
Dude, he hey, I got to give him more credit than what I've been giving him.
Like I say, I was literally our tone of watching that game was like, I'm over here like laughing. I'm like, man, Colorado's about to lose this game after all this hype. They had game day there. They had big noon kickoff there. They had The Rock, all the celebrity stardom. 60 Minutes was doing their piece on them. And, you had all this going on. And you're like, do the players feel the weight of this? And then you had all the trash talk during the week. And you're like, how disappointing would this be if they lose this game? Mm-hmm. And there was a point in time where I'm like, Colorado's going to lose this game. And I was like, this is going to be not good for the whole fun of the way it's been. But they wrote the ship. They did what they needed to do. And they came out like 11 points down to get the win. It was amazing to watch, and it was fun to watch. Yeah. And it was like, so you're like, now you say, okay, we got out of that unscathed. We won that tight game. So now we didn't drop one like everybody thinks we're going to lose the next two. So you got out of there with the 3-0 start. Yeah. And now, like I say, now you're going to get into the meat of that schedule with this Pac-12, which like the Pac-12 is fully loaded, man. I think it's the best conference, maybe top to bottom
all year.
Like with all year. Valuable teams where if UCLA is the 6th best team in the league, they're pretty good.
8 teams.
If Oregon State is good, if Oregon State is one of they would beat a lot of teams. Utah's good. Obviously USC and Oregon are the headliners, but I think we talked about. I think Colorado's lines of scrimmage just aren't there yet. Dion hadn't been able to recruit that. He hadn't been able to really portal that. When you can get, the skill guys like Shedeur's been lights out. When you can get a Travis Hunter, when you can get, some of these other receivers that have been at some big time programs, you get some skills on defense. You get, you're fast, but eventually when you have to play these bigger teams who have more depth on the line of scrimmage, I think it's just hard to overcome that until you can actually get more bodies in there to actually be, lock, stocked, and barreled on the line of scrimmage. We know it's a line of scrimmage league in all facets of football. So I think Oregon gets it done. I don't think they have any problems. Do they cover the 21?
I don't think they cover the 21.
Yeah, if it was like I think it started at like 17, I'd be more so. Yeah, they'll cover the 17, but 3 touchdowns. I mean, I could see a 51-31 or something, but that's 20 points, so But I think Oregon wins, and then it's like, okay, now you got to get back to, not get back to the drawing board, but you got to evaluate yourself, get ready to go to play a big time USC game the next week
at 10 a.m. Did you see that?
Yeah,
that game time?
That's big noon kickoff, baby.
Boy. But
so
I think as our boy Sam Williams would say, Dan Lanning's going to be blitzing off the bus.
Yeah,
at 3:30 on Saturday.
Might as well.
If they don't, I don't know what they're doing on defense. Because I think Shador is quick enough to get the ball off to where 4 may not be able to get to him. So you need to speed that process up. Like Nebraska played back, Colorado State kind of rushed them more, and like I say, Oregon's defense is better than those two defenses. Yeah. So it'll be key to see what that chess match is during that game and how both teams play it out. But like you say, we both agree that Oregon should win.
Yeah, I think the biggest key is the fact that I feel like where Shador's been lighting it up, and it looked like they might have a bit of a running back in Dylan Edwards, who's been great, all season, but he's been fantastic catching the ball. But Colorado can't run the ball. They don't try to run the ball. And so if you can't do any semblance of that, that's when, like you said, we're bringing the dogs every play. And so can Shador take the hits? Can he get the passes off quick enough? And can those guys get open? I don't think so. So we're either in for a blowout or we might see a little bit of a shootout. So because I think Bo Nix he's had a rejuvenation of life out there in Eugene, and we didn't really love Bo Nix at Auburn, but he's turned his career around out there and he's playing good quarterback. So he's doing really big things. But yeah. So we both got Oregon in that one. The other primetime 3:30 matchup is what the hell is going on in Tuscaloosa, Alabama? That game last Saturday against USF was probably one of the most atrocious Alabama games I've ever watched. And it was
bad.
It was ugly. What's crazy is after we potted last week, you send me the text that Milroe's been benched or they're going with Buckner. You're like, okay. And then we both had the conversation of, is Saban doing this to show you what he's got? Because we can win this game without Milroe. We can win this game with a high school quarterback, whoever, USF's not good. They put Tyler Buckner out there. They roll Tyler Buckner out there, and they almost caught an L. I mean,
it was bad. That game was unwatchable.
It was. I mean, yes, I had it on the smaller TV on the dual screens here at the house.
Yeah.
So I had it on to be able to watch it. But, I was more in tune to the Georgia game, than that one. And it was, plus you had a rain delay. The weather was really bad, but Buckner was terrible. Ty Simpson came in and was terrible. He had a couple nice moments, but you're like, I didn't. So then the big question was Milroe, did he get benched? Was he suspended? There was rumors flying around. Did you hear the one where this is allegedly why they pulled the trigger was they were doing film breakdown against Texas, and they were asking him, like, what is your progression here? What are you seeing? Why did you do this? And he basically couldn't answer the question. And so they were like, okay. So I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm just saying, I read it on somewhere on Alabama, Reddit, something, one of those lines. And so I'm like, well, damn. I'm like, so
he's going off his athletic ability.
He's out there street balling, dude.
Yeah.
And like I say, you watch that Texas game and you're like, this kid can play. He made one bad mistake on the pick, and then he might have he held on to the ball a couple times too long. But his pure athletic ability of running the ball, and then hell, he still throws a good deep ball.
They win that game easy Saturday if he plays.
Yeah, I don't. So Buckner ain't the answer.
But I think it's more of what you said, in my opinion. What we talked about Saturday was Saban's like, hey, just go out there, let the world see what I have at quarterback. This is the game we could do that. We could play these backups so everyone could see that number 4 is the starter. Because everybody in Bama Nation wasn't happy with him on a game, for the game against Texas. Now we can show everyone he is the guy going forward, and we need him to be the guy just because of him being able to run the football.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the other thing too, just talking about like Clemson, I feel like Bama's skill guys, and even we like their running backs, but they haven't been able to really get the ground game going with Williams and I forget what's the kid, McClellan. They just haven't hit it. Milrose had his struggles. Obviously, week 1 against Middle 10, they blew him out. But like Jermaine Burton is a nice receiver. I don't know what's happened to Ja'Cory Brooks. So like, where are those? Amari Coopers and Jerry Jeudy's and Devontae Smiths. They ain't got that. So
I think another problem I've noticed too, maybe their offensive line is just
their offensive line sucks.
Well, maybe they're too big. They're the Alabama offensive line of 8-9 years ago, where they just want to run and pound the ball and just lean forward. But it looks like guys are just getting past some of those offensive linemen.
Yeah,
that they just are quicker, because today's game, the defensive linemen are a lot lighter and faster.
I heard a stat that they have given up, like, I think the most sacks or pressures than anybody.
How are they favored in this game is beyond me.
It's because they're at home and they're trying. That's the only thing I can think of. But
I'm taking the points. Give me Ole Miss.
Like I say, I think even defensively they haven't been lights out like they've been in the past.
No.
I love Dallas Turner, but Will Anderson's not there. You don't have.
No.
I like Kool-Aid back there at corner, but hell, he even got beat a couple times. He got beat in the Texas game, and he didn't just.
Man, your boy's licking his chops right now.
Yeah, there's something just out of sync with Bama right now. So I think definitely they're going to play some inspired ball. I hope.
I don't think they're going to win.
You taking Ole Miss? I know you said you're taking the points, but you're taking Ole Miss outright to win.
I'm taking Ole Miss outright.
Lane.
Your boy Lane he knows this is might be his opportunity to actually beat Saban.
Yeah, did you see where he came out with the whole press conference where he's like, I think Kevin Steele's not the defensive coordinator anymore. I think it's Tavares Robinson, T-Rob. Did you see that?
He's I didn't. I missed it.
Yeah, he came out and said, like, they've changed coordinators, and T-Rob's calling the defense now. And then Saban had to come out and be like, no. Saban had to come out and be like, no, he's not. Kevin Steele is the defensive coordinator. And then there was another Andy Staples put out a side-by-side literally of like the other day. Put a side-by-side, and it's got Lane. They're both standing at the podium. Lane on one side with doing his podium stuff.
Yeah.
Nick on the other side. And it looked like Lane went and did like a damn film review on how Saban does it. He was like trolling. Literally, it was like,
that's what I'm saying. He knows this is his one opportunity.
Yeah, Jackson Darts looked really good. He's completing balls at a high percentage.
They're running the ball. It was funny when I told you that stat of the game, his stats, and you just looked at me like, said, "Hold on, what?" Where he had 100 some yards rushing and 200-300 yards passing or something like that. Your face was hilarious. You were just like,
Why
you read that wrong?
Why did Spencer Sanders go there again?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know either. But like I say, they've Ole Miss. I mean, they didn't.
Who you got?
I got Bama. I got Bama still. They gotta. I still go back to that Texas game. We said that Texas has the best win against Bama. In Tuscaloosa. I think Milroe does make a big difference being back in the lineup
for sure.
And I've always been even going into last year. I love Lane, but I've still been skeptical of his team. Still, they started off 7-0 last year, and then they got their ass waxed against LSU, and then they lost like 4 out of their last 5 games and ended up 7-5 or something.
For sure. Lane's a loose cannon,
right? But I love Lane, and I love his offense and all that stuff. But I don't know why. I just think definitely last week was a one-off in my opinion versus South Florida. Or put it this way, you could have Alabama and Clemson both losing, teams who've been in the top in the spots in the last several years, both with 2 losses. So that'll be our top story next week if those are the case. But I still like Bama just because I'm a Bama homer too, because Pops. But I feel like Ole Miss is just kind of one of those teams that's kind of always in the top 25, in the top 15 because they get rolling early. Lane has a good mystique about him and all that. I definitely think Jackson Dart is doing some good things, but the only reason why Bama's favored because they're at home. I'd be interested to see what the line would be if the game was in Oxford, because for some reason Bama doesn't play well in Oxford either when they play Ole Miss. But I got to go with the Tide, man. I got to go with the Tide. So,
right,
like I say,
I'm going Ole Miss, Land Sharks.
There you go. So
Let's
that's
go.
our only one differential game so far in our
Yeah.
picks.
When I saw the line last night, I was just like, okay, even if you have Bama winning, you would think that line would be 3.5, 4.
Yeah, 3.5, 4. Yeah.
After what everyone saw this past week, once again, what does Vegas know that we don't know?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Vegas is trying to pull you in on that, and take the points and
They're
get blazed up.
They're pulling me in.
No, that's what I'm saying.
They're
So
pulling me in. So who you? I know you got Bama winning. Do you have them covering?
Yeah, I got Bama. I'll take them. I'll take Bama to cover. I'll take them to win by a touchdown.
Wow. Okay.
I'll take them to win by a touchdown. Like, I can see it being 28-21.
All right.
I can see it being 30-20, something like that. 31-20, 31-20. Yeah,
that's
30.
That's
what I'm saying. So we'll go with the push. They didn't put.
They didn't put
the hook on there. They didn't put the hook on there.
I mean, it still can move. It still can move between now and Saturday.
That's today. That's today's line. I locked it in today. No, so the nightcap game. That's the big one. Is the Ohio State Buckeyes going on the road to face Notre Dame, baby. And I like this matchup because I love, this is not your traditional matchup. They play it. They played a little bit in the past, and they played some good ball games. But I like this matchup just because, Notre Dame, now that they got, Freeman at the coach there when, Brian Kelly went on down to be with his family at LSU. Notre Dame's quietly been, playing some good defense.
It's crazy you say that.
It's because
very quiet.
Yeah, nobody's talking Notre Dame. I mean, the
last Hartman, 2 seasons. No one talks about Notre Dame really anymore.
Well, I think early last year that Marshall loss kind of set them back a little bit, and then they had another early season loss. But quietly now they're top 10 team. They're playing some good defense. Sam Hartman is having a really good start to the season. He's been lighting it up. He's already thrown for 1,000. Yeah, he's already thrown for 1,000 yards and 13 TDs. So he's playing good ball.
They are running the ball. Estime is pretty good.
Estime's already got 500 yards on the ground and 5 touchdowns. We talked about Ohio State and kind of how, I guess everybody wasn't in love with that week 1 win against Indiana.
I'm still not in love with it.
Yeah. I feel like their offense just isn't clicking. But I mean, hell, when you lose a guy like CJ Stroud, who's lighting up.
Yeah, it's going to look different.
I mean, did you see the stat on CJ Stroud in his first 2 NFL games, throwing for 600 something yards, most ever in the first 2 games? So when you lose a guy like that who made it look so easy, and then, you had the Olaves and the Garrett Wilsons of the world. Now, don't get me wrong. We think that Marvin Harrison Jr. might be the best out of all those guys. And then you have Emeka, and you have, Julian Fleming, and you have Trayvon Henderson, and you're like, okay, why? So McCord has been solid at quarterback. I thought that Devin Brown was going to maybe push for that job a little more, but Ohio State, they've been, they've been quietly. I mean, I guess part of it too is they haven't played anybody since that week 1, and even if you count Indiana, playing Youngstown and Western Kentucky isn't doing anything to light the world on fire. So they did what they needed to do in those games, won big. So now it comes down to having to play against a solid defense, going on the road, but they're favored. So how do you like this one? How do you like this one? Who do you like?
I like Notre Dame in this one.
All right, we're different on this one too because I like the Buckeyes.
The quarterback play for Ohio State, man, it's just I just don't know. This is one of those games where you just pick. I'm just picking Notre Dame because I want to see Ohio State show me.
Right. That's kind of like. Yeah, it's going like back to the Gators, like against it. Like, show me you can beat a top 10 team.
And that's the only reason I'm picking Notre Dame because they have Sam Hartman. They got the experienced quarterback, and just show me.
And they're playing
show
at
me
home.
Ohio State.
They're playing out. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. And like I say, I think more so, McCord. I think McCord's quietly had a decent start to the year. He's completing 70% of his passes. He's thrown 6 touchdowns, only 1 interception. Throwing for 800 yards. I know somebody was joking because everybody loves JJ McCarthy. I won't say who in our circle of friends, but the big Michigan guy. But it was somebody else, because everybody loves JJ McCarthy. And they put it side by side so far the first 3 games of stats, and McCord's got better numbers. And if you don't really dive into the numbers, you would think, okay, Michigan, they haven't played anybody yet. What are the numbers? I think McCarthy threw like 3 picks last weekend, in their game against Bowling Green or whoever they played. But not comparing those
One of
guys,
those
but
games
like
where you
just
could take more chances.
right.
Yeah.
But just looking at the numbers, I think just people are quietly not paying attention to Ohio State necessarily because that Dion has been the talk of college football. So I'm sure a lot of these teams are like, yeah, Dion, y'all keep following Colorado all you want to. Don't talk about us until we got to play in a matchup like this and go on a top 10.
Like you say, the reason why they're talking about Colorado. I mean, look at since week 1 when you guys played Utah. Name another top game that's been played. Florida State, LSU,
right?
So
I think
it was a perfect storm
in
for
the first
Colorado.
in the first 3 weeks of the season. I feel like we had maybe 5 or 6 total ranked game matchups.
Yeah,
because obviously the Gators weren't ranked last week, so that doesn't even count as a ranked game. It was,
it's just a rivalry game.
The Colorado game wasn't a ranked game. It was the Florida State LSU game was the marquee matchup that week.
Yeah,
and even week 2, we didn't have any like great sexy matchups. I think it was like Tulane and Ole Miss was the only ranked matchup.
And like so it was a perfect storm for Dion and Colorado to take the headlines.
Yeah,
but
rightfully so. Yeah, rightfully so. Now we're getting into the meat of these, conference schedules. You're getting some of these matchups that we saw down the line, like this one, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we get to, like you said, show me something, Ohio State. Show me that your offense didn't miss a beat by losing C.J. Stroud, and you got Trayvon Henderson and Marvin Harrison Jr. and you're throwing it and lighting it up. I feel like they do have enough on the offensive side of the ball, and I think
it's quarterback play.
I think defensively, I think Ohio State's pretty damn good on defense too.
Yeah,
I feel like this is one of their better defenses.
For me, it's quarterback. I know what you got at the skill position. I know what you got behind him. The offensive line, they lost a lot on the offensive line. I mean, obviously, 2 of their starting tackles from last season are starting in the NFL. Show me what you got. That's what this game is. And if they win, I'll tip my hat to them and said, hey, now going forward, you guys have no one else to play until you play Michigan, maybe Penn State.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's what it is for me. I think Ohio State. I think those we've talked about the Big Ten, and we all like Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State as the teams, and we feel like they'll all run the table till they play each other, and who's going to cannibalize each other and get the wins when they need to. Because Ohio State literally after this game they play Maryland and Purdue, which they should have no problem with. Then they got Penn State. That'll be a big one. Then they play literally Wisconsin, Rutgers, Sparty, Minnesota, Michigan. So it's like they get Penn State in the middle of October, and then they get like 4 or 5 games until they got to play the big one.
What's nuts is when you hear these national pundits keep telling us that the Big Ten is the best conference. The Big Ten. I'm like, what are you looking at to say the Big Ten is the best conference?
I mean,
because they got
I guess
3 teams that don't play each other until the end of the year.
Yeah, they're going top. They're going top heavy. They're going basically those big 3 teams, and then
conference.
Yeah, I don't agree either because we obviously know we feel like the SEC is majorly down. They obviously have one of the best teams, and then who is the second or third best team in the SEC, and where do they line up? But top to bottom, we know the Pac-12 we think is the best. But
right now, they're the best conference.
Yeah, you got to let it play out and do all that, But all right, so you like Notre Dame, and I guess I'll go with the Buckeyes. So those are our 2 different games, and like I say, we'll break it down and see, who does what, and how the game fares out. But we've got a couple other top 25 matchups because, like I say, the slate is still fully loaded and looks beautiful as we go on. Though, but that's how the layers go. You got the nice noon game, you got the couple 3:30s, and you got your
big
your nightcap. Yes,
yeah.
The other 3:30 games that are worth noting is definitely the other Pac-12 games. You got Oregon State going to Wazoo. That's a top 25 matchup.
Dude, have you look at Wazoo's schedule? Wazoo?
No, I know. No,
they're trying to show everyone they might be the best team in the Pac-12. I don't think they are, but they've gone on the road. They've beaten Purdue. I can't remember who else. I'm not saying that's a big game, but at least they're going on the road and saying, you know what, we're going to go out there and win.
Yeah.
So that game, man, I love DJU. I think this is going to be.
He's played pretty well.
Yeah, this might be one of those games where Oregon State's going to say, "We're just going to bully ball you," and we're gonna get an ugly win. And I'm curious. I'm curious to see this game. I think Oregon State's going to win, but it wouldn't shock me if Wazoo won.
Yeah, no. Wazoo's a ranked team. They're 3-0. They played pretty solidly. Guess what? You're in Pullman. You're at home. So those are one of those games where they're saying, "Hey, come on in here, Oregon State. We're the better team. We're ranked 2, and we're playing at home." Like I say, so I want to see. This will find out how good Washington State, if we need to talk about them anymore, or is Oregon State for real, and how do they go forward? The other nice 3:30 matchup too is UCLA going to Utah, another top 25 matchup where two teams. Chip Kelly's trying to get that offense rolling. Utah, we've seen them, in the early part of the season with the backup quarterback play. Their defense has been stout.
I was just going to say, have we heard anything on Cam Rising? I haven't heard anything.
I don't even know if Cam's playing, but I think kind of Utah's in the mode of when he's ready to play, we'll put him in, and we'll just keep doing what we've been doing. Now, I mean, this game being at home, you got to feel good because Utah plays really well at home. So, how good is Chip Kelly, and the offense going? I know that I love Dante Moore. He's been rolling in a couple different quarterbacks. Dante Moore was the highly rated freshman, but I don't even know if Chip's settled in on a quarterback that he's like, hey, this is the guy.
Yeah, outside of the first game of the season, I haven't really paid too much attention to UCLA.
Yeah.
If I had to pick, I would take Utah right now, just because they're just more physical. They're at home. They know what they are. They know what they want to do. Kyle's not changing because of the quarterback situation. They want to run the football and be physical.
Yeah, for sure.
And can you catch up with that?
Yeah, no, for sure. And then the other night game that's going to be on the opposite of that Notre Dame game is the big CBS guy. I was about to say SEC. The big CBS used to be SEC games, but the CBS night game, because you got the Bama Ole Miss is the CBS afternoon game, is your Big Ten game against Iowa and the Fighting Brian Francis, offense that needs to score 25 points. I
was about to say, the only reason I care about this game is, do they break the total of 40?
Going to Penn State. So Iowa's at Penn State.
Do they break 40, and does Iowa score more than 14 points?
Yeah.
On offense.
Yeah, no.
Offense. That's all I care about this game. I don't care who wins.
Yeah, I think Penn State wins. Penn State's been, I've told you I've liked Penn State. You're not on board with Penn State as much as I am.
You love
they haven't looked overly impressive. They banged with West Virginia week 1. They kind of didn't look great against Illinois last week. I think Illinois is a sneaky. I think Illinois is a sneaky okay team, but it's just watching some of those
ugly game.
I was about to say, watching some of those mid-tier Big Ten games are so boring.
Yeah,
it's like it's just like this is bad. So it'll be a cool atmosphere. Night game at Happy Valley is always a fun game, but I definitely that'll be on the little TV. I'm not the
little TV.
Hell, you know what? I'd rather watch Florida put up 50 against Charlotte than maybe watch.
Same, dude. It's that game. Like you say, the total is 40.
Yeah, that's wild.
Only Iowa games you see totals in the 30s and 40s. Everyone else like 50s.
Yeah, for sure.
It wouldn't surprise me if that game was like 23-7. Either team 23-7.
Right. That sounds about right. I think Penn State might win 23-7, 23-10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the only reason I care is they break 40.
I like Penn State. I think they'll get better. Drew Aller just got to continue to get better. Yeah. And here's the thing.
I think Penn State's going to win too.
They got easy games until they got to go play October 21st against Ohio State. So, by that time, that's several weeks away. How good where will Ohio State be, after like this Notre Dame game? How good will they be against, some subpar opponents?
Mm-hmm.
Where does Penn State go from here? So like it'll be interesting to see as the season goes on. One thing I want to circle back to that we didn't get to talk about in I guess a recap from last week was Georgia. We skipped across because we went straight into this week. What were your thoughts on Georgia against South Carolina and how that game played out? I was thoroughly shocked at the first half of that ball game. And here's the thing. Watching week 1, North Carolina, South Carolina, I was still somewhat impressed with Spencer Rattler, with the offense, at the amount of times he got sacked and pressured. that they were pretty much in that game for the most part.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how great North Carolina defense looks. And, North Carolina came out with a win. So you're like, South Carolina just ain't got it. But I still felt like South Carolina was decent. But I was kind of surprised at how, Georgia
lack of pressure.
They Spencer kind of did what he wanted to do, hit some big plays. They were able to run the ball a little bit early in that game. So you're going into halftime, you're like 14-3, like Georgia hadn't done nothing in this game. You're just like, what's going on? And then the 4 quarters, they come out and blitz them in the second half, 21-0.
Yeah.
And they get the win by 10. But
I
think what do you think about Georgia? What do you think about Georgia?
I think you hit the nail on the head Saturday when you're like, they don't have that explosive guy on the outside. As we both love Bowers.
Yeah, we love
they don't have that receiver. They don't have that. They wish they had Mitchell. Yeah, they wish they had him right now.
It's like when you're
struggling running the ball too.
When you're missing Ladd McConkey, that's a problem. Because I love Ladd. He's a ball player. He's like a Wes Welker in your offense, but he's
not our number one.
Exactly. So you're like, you can't wait to get Ladd McConkey back in the offense. No, you still don't have a true Arian Smith would probably be, Rosemary St. Jack and Arian Smith would probably be their guys, but Rosemary Jackson's been there for, 5 years, and he's not the light it on fire guy. And then Aaron Smith is your take the top off guy.
Yeah.
But they just don't have that Adonai Mitchell to complement, even going back Jermaine Burton leaving them, You can't. You can only throw it to Bowers so much, and when teams can really zone in on, hell, I don't care or respect what you got going on outside. I'm going to double Brock Bowers and try to triple him, whatever you got to do to not let him catch balls. To where he caught 7 balls for 54 yards last week. I'll take that all day.
Yeah, and you going into that game, you would think watching that offensive line against North Carolina, you're like, don't matter what Georgia does on offense, they're just going to eat and just get to the quarterback the whole day. And they really didn't. Rattler had opportunity. They still had opportunities to possibly get back in this game and win it, and they just couldn't. I just think the depth of Georgia just finally took over in that second half. But it's like you say, it's starting to look like the East could be wide open.
Right.
Almost. We're both beginning of the season, we're like, oh, Georgia's going to sleepwalk through the season. They should beat everyone. And now you're just like,
well, you realize the attrition of losing all those stars to the NFL. It looks like it might be catching up with them. And prime example,
just
too,
like
even Carson. Carson doesn't look great right now, where I thought he would look really good. And, you really you miss seeing like a Stetson Bennett who was that calming, stable, like, I'm going to make plays for us. Don't worry, guys. And he just did.
But if you're Carson, Kirby, you gotta stick with him and just give him time. And
no, for sure.
He hasn't played. He hasn't started since high school.
Yeah.
Any of the quarterbacks on their roster haven't played since they were in high school.
Yeah. The best part about it is, they get UAB this week, so they'll blow them out. And then they go on the road on an interesting next week. They go on the road at Auburn, another interesting team who we really haven't talked about, who's quietly 3-0 as well. But then they play Kentucky, Vandy, Florida, Missouri. Who knows how good is Kentucky? Where does Florida go? If the Gators are able to get any ground game on them, could they make that game interesting? If Florida's defense is as good as advertised right now too. So it'll be, Georgia just didn't look as impressive, but like we say, get out of there with a win.
Yeah.
It was just kind of, I guess it was kind of a surprising game.
No, it was. It really was.
You expected, the line was freaking 28, so everybody thought they would win this game easy by 4 touchdowns, and they kind of didn't. And I take it back too. I said I took it back to South Carolina didn't even try to run the ball, and they couldn't run the ball. Georgia still stifled the running game, but Spencer was able to get, some decent numbers passing, and they hit some big plays early. But, again, Georgia I think they're still finding their way with all these new guys and trying to figure out what they want to do offensively.
I think so too. I think it's still, they're figuring things out, and they know they have the opportunities with a lot of these games to keep figuring it out. But still, someone has to step up on the outside. Someone has to step up on the outside other than Bowers, because like you say, if not, teams are going to just double and triple team him. That's all they're going to do. So I guess we need to just keep an eye on them and see how they're playing. That's all we
and
can
like I
do,
say,
right?
and I think again, part of that too is guess what they're playing an uninspired game against UAB this week, and then going on the road, at one of their biggest hate rivalries with Auburn, but Auburn, that's a whole nother topic. We'll get on them too. Hugh Freeze hasn't lit it up per se to start the year, so
No,
we'll
but
see how.
they're 3-0. That's all that
Yeah,
matters.
exactly. They've won 3 ball games.
Would you say at the start of the pod, get in, get out with a W?
Exactly.
That's what it's, and it's showing across the country where we're picking teams in our preview show. We're like, oh, this cakewalk, this team should get this, and now it's starting to show up that hey, if you mess around, a team could come into your place or beat you on the road or however, and then we could be looking at 4 teams at the end of the season we never even expected to be in the playoff.
Right.
In all reality, it possibly can happen.
Yeah, no, this Auburn is on the road at A&M Saturday at 12:00. So that's a nice little matchup. How does
speaking of the natives being restless out there in Aggie land?
Yeah, no,
man. If Auburn wins that game, you imagine?
No, if Auburn goes on the road and beats Jimbo and the Texas A&M boys,
do they pony up $80 million to fire?
that buyout is so crazy, man. It is ridiculous.
Do they pony up 80? I know they got oil money out there. But do they pony up $80 million? Or do they just try to find something to fire?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
All right, dog, let's go before we wrap up. Give me your top 10. Did it shake up? Any changes? What do you got going on with your top 10 teams right now? Who you got?
Only change I got is Oregon moving in at number 10, Bama moving out. So I'll go from 10 to 1. I got Oregon, Washington, Notre Dame, Penn State, USC. I got Ohio State at 5, FSU at 4, Texas at 3, Michigan at 2, and UGA at 1. I just, after watching that game with Bama and their last couple of weeks, I'm like, I can't leave them at number 10.
Oh, yeah, Bama's out of my 10. Yeah, they're out of my 10 for sure, too.
Yeah, I just bumped Oregon in, and everything else stays the same. Like I said, that game, the FSU game against Boston College doesn't really concern me as of yet. We'll see Saturday, but as of right now, they're still number 4 just because of Texas going into Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
Even though Bama doesn't look good, that's still a huge win to go into Tuscaloosa and win.
Right. Yeah. We'll as the season goes on, we can look back to be like, all right, Bama ended up losing 3 or 4 games. Yeah. Not to take anything away from Texas week 2 winning that game. You know, week 11, we're like, all right, well, Bama they ain't got it this year. So basically my top 10 pretty much stays the same too. I got Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Texas at 3, Florida State 4, USC at number 5, Ohio State 6, Penn State 7, the Washington Husky boys at 8, Notre Dame 9, and Oregon at number 10. So we did one of the other circle games we had last week too was Washington at Sparty, and man, they blowout city. And now it looks like Mel Tucker is officially going to be fired and all that. So a mess in Spartansville.
Yeah. Have you seen Penix's numbers?
Yeah, they're stupid.
400 in every game so far.
He's lighting it up.
The lefty is lighting it up. But
it's one of those things of, like we said before, like, sometimes the new scenery for some of these guys is good.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say that he wasn't good at Indiana, because I always thought he was a solid quarterback. But, he's 1,330 yards, completing 74% of his balls, 12 touchdowns to 1 pick.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice.
Well, it
helps one time too.
Yeah, it helps when he went out there. He pretty much went because of his offensive coordinator getting the offensive coordinator job at UW. So, I mean, that's why, or he's the head coach, one of the two. Yeah. That's the reason why he went, and it's worked out for him.
Yeah.
It's worked out for him. But,
definitely.
Should be a fun week. Week
definitely.
4. I'm excited.
I can't wait. Like I say, it's a beautiful day of all day college football watching for me. So, definitely think I'm going to, throw some more wings on. I might do some brats and some burgers or something maybe. So, like I say, we'll get on the grill and grub out, have some nice adult beverages, and watch some college football all day for sure.
Yeah. Before we get out of here, Sponge, I got to do what I normally do at the end.
What you got to do?
Give my shout outs.
Get the shout outs.
Aloha to my man Daniel Scarborough out there in Hawaii. Hey, thanks for watching, man. David and Kelly Harris, giving them a hard time Saturday.
Yeah, see, we got what we need to give shout outs at the beginning, probably, because if anybody stuck around to watch it, I always tell myself, I was like, do it at the beginning, but we're just ready to dive in. You just want to talk some ball.
Dive in. I get. We can move it to the front then.
Yeah, we got to get we got to do shout outs at the beginning. Like, thank
all
of you for listening, because if you made it to the hour and 10-minute mark, we salute you.
We salute you. Thanks again.
No, for sure. Like Faro said, appreciate anybody and everybody listening. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell, get the notifications on whenever we come.
Hey, shoot us a message on YouTube.
Text us, send comments, do whatever. Facebook, holler at your boy. Give us some love. But like I say, we truly appreciate it, and it's been fun talking this week. And like I say, we'll look forward to chatting it up next week as we wrap up this week's College 4 preview and review of last week, college football edition of Talking Ball with your boys. Holler at us, man.
Later.